all-pervading personality of Godhead. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes, of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations. And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion. As one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen on fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations in the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Dharma projita kaitravudra paramo nirmatsanam satam vedyam vastavam atravastu shivadam tapa trayam bhuvanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimva Parir Ishvaraha Sadyo Hide Avarudyate Tra Krite Bihe Sususabis Dakshana. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigama kalpatarur galitam phalam Sukhamukad amrita dravya samyutam Pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam Muhur aho rasika bhuvi bhavakaha. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desired tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 10, text number 5. Nadya Samudra Giraya Savanaspati Virudaha Valantyo Sadaya Sarva Kamam Anvitutasya Vai. Translation. The rivers, oceans, hills, mountains, forests, creepers, and active drugs in every season paid their tax quota to the king in profusion. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Profile. Since Maharaj Yudhisthira was under the protection of the Ajita, the infallible Lord, as above mentioned, the properties of the Lord, namely the rivers, oceans, hills, forests, etc., were all pleased, and they used to supply their respective quota of taxes to the king. The secret to success is to take refuge under the protection of the Supreme Lord. So this is a Mahavakya, a great statement. Actually, we had downstairs. We had that big poster. That, one should work hard and use the wealth that they required for the service of the Lord. What happened to that poster? Someone took it down. What?
I didn't know.
You didn't know?
I didn't see it.
You never saw that poster? It was up for months. Yeah.
So the main one?
And on the bulletin board outside.
Let me check. The last one.
Well, no, it was taken down. It's not there anymore.
The last one.
Yeah, we should put it back up, and then we should put this one up, too. The secret to success is to take refuge under the protection of the Supreme Lord. Without His sanction, nothing can be possible. To make economic development by our own endeavors on the strength of tools and machinery is not all. The sanction of the Supreme Lord must be there. Otherwise, despite all instrumental arrangements, everything will be unsuccessful. The ultimate cause of success is the Daiva, the Supreme. Kings like Maharaj Yudhisthira knew perfectly well that the king is the agent of the Supreme Lord to look after the welfare of the mass of people. Actually, the state belongs to the Supreme Lord. The rivers, oceans, forests, hills, drugs, etc. are not creations of man. They are all creations of the Supreme Lord, and the living being is allowed to make use of the property of the Lord for the service of the Lord. Today's slogan is that everything is for the people, and therefore the government is for the people and by the people. But to produce a new species of humanity at the present moment on the basis of God consciousness and perfection of human life, the ideology of godly communism, the world has to again follow in the footsteps of kings like Maharaj Yudhisthira or Parikshit. There is enough of everything by the will of the Lord, and we can make proper use of things to live comfortably without enmity between men or animal or man or nature. The control of the Lord is everywhere, and if the Lord is pleased, every part of nature will be pleased. The river will flow profusely to fertilize the land. The oceans will supply sufficient quantities of minerals, pearls, and jewels. The forest will supply sufficient wood, drugs, and vegetables. And the seasonal changes will effectively help produce fruits and flowers in profuse quantity. The artificial way of living, depending on factories and tools, can render so-called happiness only to a limited number at the cost of millions. Since the energy of the mass of people is engaged in factory production, the natural products are being hampered, and for this, the mass is unhappy. Without being educated properly, the mass of people are following in the footsteps of the vested interests by exploiting natural reserves. And therefore, there is acute competition between individual and individual, nation and nation. There is no control by the trained agent of the Lord. We must look into the defects of modern civilization by comparison here, and should follow in the footsteps of Maharaj Yudhisthira to cleanse man and wipe out anachronisms. Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada ki jai. The rivers, oceans, hills, mountains, forests, creepers, and active drugs in every season paid their tax quota to the king in profusion. Well, problem is, do we believe this, what Prabhupada is writing here? And if we do believe it, why don't we actively work to institute this, as he says here, it says here, the artificial way of living, depending on factories and tools, can render so-called happiness only to a limited number at the cost of millions. Since the energy of the mass of people is engaged in factory production, the natural products are being hampered. And for this, the mass is unhappy. Without being educated properly, the mass of people are following in the footsteps of the vested interests by exploiting natural reserves. Therefore, there is an acute competition between individual and nation and nation. There is no control by the trained agent of the Lord. We must look into the defects of modern civilization by comparison here, and should follow in the footsteps of Maharaj Yudhisthira to cleanse man and wipe out anachronisms. Anachronisms means inequalities and things that are not normal, right? But he did say, let's see, where is it? He did say we should make a new race of people, or not race, but a new...
Humanity.
Huh?
Humanity, new species.
New species of humanity.
Yeah, that's before what you read started before that. When you started reading the same paragraph.
Really?
But to produce a new species of humanity.
Okay. Yeah, well, yeah, but to produce a new species of humanity. Yes. So, how do we do that? Well, first of all, we have to point out the defects of modern civilization compared to what's being explained here. And that's what Prabhupada does in this purport. Basically, he's saying that today there's an artificial way of living, depending on factories and tools. And this can only give happiness to a few people. Yeah, the guys that own those factories. Everybody else has to work really hard and basically struggle. And so this is what's called, earlier on he said, it's a type of communism. What was the phrase? The phrase he used was,
the ideology of godly communism.
yeah, there it is. The ideology of godly communism. So, if you didn't realize it, now you know that Prabhupada is actually espousing a type of communism. What is the idea of communism? That is that, instead of working for the welfare of the people, materialistic communism works for the welfare of the people. Everyone should work for the welfare of Krishna, and that will make everybody's welfare also guaranteed. So that's the whole point of this. It says the secret to success is to take refuge under the protection of the Supreme Lord. Without his sanction, nothing can be possible. And then he goes into this. To make economic development by our own endeavors on the strength of tools and machinery is not all. The sanction of the Supreme Lord must be there. Otherwise, despite all instrumental arrangements, everything will be unsuccessful. The ultimate cause of success is the Daiva. Daiva means transcendental Lord. Just like it says, Daivihi esa gunamani mama maya duratyaya. The Daivi Maya is the energy of the Lord. It's insurmountable. We cannot overcome it. So if we try and overcome it by our own means, through factories and technology and things like that, we will fail. If we cooperate with the Lord, then the Lord will order nature to cooperate with us, and then everything will be easy for people. Because then the rivers, the oceans, the hills, the mountains, the forests, the creepers, and active drugs in every season will pay their tax quota to the devotee king in profusion, and everyone will be happy. So therefore it says the ultimate cause of success is the Daiva, the Supreme. Kings like Maharaj Yudhishthira knew perfectly well that the king is the agent of the Supreme Lord to look after the welfare of the mass of people. So in other words, the idea of democracy is not a good idea. There should be a devotee king who is actually a renounced person, but whose main concern is seeing that the Lord is pleased, and therefore the people will be pleased also. So they are all, so it says that rivers, oceans, forests, hills, drugs, etc. are not creations of man. They are all creations of the Supreme Lord. And the living being is allowed to make use of the property of the Lord for the service of the Lord. That's the whole point. Today's slogan is that everything is for the people. And therefore the government is for the people and by the people. But to produce a new species of humanity at the present moment on the basis of God consciousness and perfection of human life, the ideology of godly communism, the world has to again follow in the footsteps of kings like Maharaj Yudhishthira or Parikshit. So godly communism is not about the people as material communism is. It's about pleasing Krishna or God. So if we please God, then all the people will be pleased because we're all part and parcel of God. If we work to please the people, then nobody's going to be pleased. And it creates competition. Individual against individual. Nations against nations. You see. So that is the problem. And because of that, you see this constant competition on the individual level, on the national level, complicates life and leads to catastrophes. Just like there's a terrible tornado in Nashville, Tennessee. More than 20 people died, and it caused tremendous damage to the city. And so this is happening on a regular basis, or like the coronavirus, or this virus. By the way, between October 1st, 2019 and February 1st, 2020, more than 12,000 people died of the flu. Not the corona flu, not the coronavirus, but the flu, right? Every winter, there's the flu in the United States, and people get flu shots. Still, that period, 5-month period, more than 12,000 people. In fact, they're saying, because sometimes they don't get everybody, they don't have the records of everyone. They say it's between 12,000 and 30,000 people that died. In the United States only. So what's the big thing about the coronavirus? The regular flu is killing a massive number of people every year in the United States. So we can't control these things. We try, but we can't really control these things because the Daiva Mai, the material nature, is under the control of Krishna. It's not under our control. So here he's saying the secret to success, if we want to succeed in life, is to take refuge under the protection of the Supreme Lord. Now, let's say the President of the United States doesn't do that, but we can do it. We should take refuge under the protection of the Supreme Lord. We should understand the fault in depending on the production of factories and IT companies and this thing and that thing. That's not really going to solve our problem. Our problem is birth, death, old age, and disease. It's not really going to solve our problem. It might give us some wealth, it might give us this or that, but it's not going to solve the actual problems. The actual problems are going to be solved by depending on or taking refuge under the protection of the Lord, using all the assets of material nature in the service of the Lord properly, under proper guidance. And then, depending, as we did yesterday, we saw, depending on the production of the land and cows as the basis of economic development. So yesterday Prabhupada said the basic principle of economic development is centered on land and cows. Now you know why we have 2 farms, and now we should increase that. And we should increase our cow herd, and we should increase our vegetable and grain and herb production. Because that is the future. It's not something that is, IT is not the future, according to what Prabhupada is saying here. See? The necessities of human society are food, grains, fruits, milk, minerals, clothing, wood, etc. One requires all these items to fulfill the material needs of the body. Certainly one does not require flesh and fish or iron tools and machinery. There you go. So this means that we could live a very peaceful, happy life if we focused on farming, cow protection, and working with the natural cycles of nature. The carbon cycle, the nitrogen cycle, the phosphorus cycle, the water cycle, and all these different cycles. We have to understand how they're working and work cooperatively with them. And, of course, regular Harinam Sankirtan, which will give us regulated rain. You can see we're getting irregular rain, but we're getting too much rain up here. Maybe we're doing too much kirtan, I don't know. I don't think so, though. So the more we engage in Harinam Sankirtan, the more things will get better and better. We have to realize that. We're not getting enough people on Sankirtan. We should have at least 100 people every time we go out, at least. And now we have our big Sankirtan coming. We should get at least 300 people. We have to understand what's being said here in the Srimad Bhagvatam, what Prabhupada is saying. If we just read it and say, ha ha ha, okay, yeah, I'm not going to do that. No, that's not the purpose. We have to try and do it. If we don't try, that means that we're not actually hearing Prabhupada. He wanted farms, he wanted cow protection, he wanted production of the farms to feed the devotees and to give an example to society, right? And he didn't really want us to depend on machinery and sophisticated technologies. He wanted us to do everything in a grassroots, let's call it natural way. And that requires more warm bodies working instead of cold machinery working. See? And when you have a large group of people that say, okay, this is what we're going to do now, and you become pioneers, just like, the Mormons, they were pioneers, right? They left the East Coast and they came out to the Wild West because they were being persecuted. But before that, the Pilgrims, they were pioneers. They came to a country where there's no Walmart, there's no Safeway, nothing like that. They were just wild Indians. And they wanted to practice their religion without being persecuted. And eventually they started a country in which freedom of religion is guaranteed. And freedom to arm yourself also is guaranteed, all these things, because this is the life of a pioneer. They have to deal with they have to depend on the mercy of God, basically, right? So if we exploit nature, then even if you're a pioneer, if your idea is to exploit nature selfishly, then you're going to fail. But if your idea is to dedicate everything to the service of Krishna, you will succeed eventually. And there might be a period of struggle, but you will succeed, guaranteed, according to what's being said here. So this type of ideology of godly communism, he uses the word communism in the sense that everyone is cooperating with each other to please the Lord. That is godly communism. That's why I use the word godly. Whereas materialistic communism, they're all working to help each other improve their sense gratification. That's a failure, and it's failed many times. So nowadays you have Bernie Sanders. He's talking about, he's talking about
Free education.
no, he's talking about a certain type of socialism. What is it? Democratic socialism. I think is that what?
Is that a new word?
No, that's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. In other words, socialism is a bad word nowadays in English, right? But he's trying to make it sound good by democratic socialism. Some kind of, I forget, maybe if that's not the right word, democratic. But he's trying to soften the idea of socialism. But the idea is everybody's working together for a common goal. But the common goal should be to please Krishna, whereas his common goal is we all work together and we get, free Medicare, we get free schools, and you get free this and you free that, right? But again, it's for the people. It's not for the Krishna. Just like it says here that when everyone's working for their own satisfaction, or let's say their own material welfare. It says here that the ultimate cause of success is the Daiva, the Supreme. Kings like Maharaj Yudhishthira knew perfectly well that the king is the agent of the Supreme Lord to look after the welfare of the mass of people. Actually, the state belongs to the Supreme Lord. Okay. However, today, everything is being done for the selfish welfare of the people. So when Bernie Sanders says, I'll give you this, I'll give you that, or any of those people, they say, I'm going to give you this, I'll give you that. That's what politicians do, whether it's in India or the United States. They're promised, just like in the 1950s, they were saying, everyone will get chicken dinner on Sunday, a washing machine, and a car in their garage, right? So that was the 1950s, and now they're talking about free education, free Medicare, Medicaid, and free this and free that. See? So all freebies, right? Like in the last big election against Modi, there was the Congress was guaranteeing the minimum free money for everybody in the country, in India. How are they going to do that? Give free money to everyone? They don't have to work? Huh? Free money. See, that's the way the politicians went. Obama, he gave free cell phones. It's called the Obama phone. Okay, so we'll stop right there, but we should think seriously about this. This purport is the way to success, but it's going to require cooperation of a large number of devotees to do this. But we have to believe it. It's fact that the IT thing is not what's going to help us. Factories are not what's going to help us. It's the farms and cow protection and the whole farm supply chain. Our kids should be encouraged to fit into the supply chain. That means you need microbiologists, you need dairymen, you need farmers, you need truckers, you need bankers. It all fits into the supply chain of cow protection and land stewardship. And if our kids are convinced to go into those fields that could fit into that supply chain, then in 1 or 2 generations we'd have a gigantic operation going based on exactly what Prabhupada's talking about here. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada